Yeah. Okay, so let us we're live. Let's continue where we left off concerning tests. So we were looking at tests previously. Um yeah, from the Rust book. Um so yeah, let's continue with that. So we'll look at test organization. Um we also had like a we also had like the project or Oracle code base that we were using for that. So let's check it out. Um I also had tried a different approach previously, which is like I just come here and I don't I don't talk much. I just like do what I'm doing, and people can ask questions. I think that went pretty well for the video tool that we were writing, right? So we're developing a video tool. Yeah, for that one, I think it went very well. So I guess I would use that format for coding the video tool, but I'm not sure which we would use for this one. For this one, I'm just gonna go like this. Yeah. So regarding test organization, testing is a complex discipline. Wait, just 1 second. Yeah, testing is a complex discipline, and different people use different terminology. An organization, the Rust community thinks about tests in terms of two main categories. So basically, unit tests and integration tests. I think that's also general, right? So it's not just Rust. So unit tests and integration tests. But also good to. I mean, this is a common case even in Rust. Unit tests are small and more focused. Yeah, testing one model in isolation at a time and can test private interfaces. Integration tests are entirely external to your library. Mhm. Integration tests are entirely external to your library and use your code in the same way an external code would. So using only the public interface and potentially exercising multiple modules per test. Writing both kinds of tests is important to ensure that the pieces of code in the library are doing what you expect them separately and together. So yeah, so that's the unit test. The purpose of unit tests is to test each unit of code in isolation from the rest of the code quickly to pinpoint where code is working and isn't working as expected. You put unit tests in the SRC directory in each file, with the code that they are testing. So, okay, so it's together. The convention is to create a module named test in each file to contain the test functions and to annotate the module with CFG test. What is this CFG? This is a while that is loading. Yeah, okay. I think my network is not so good. I'm sitting pretty far away from. Yeah, but anyway, um, yeah, it's there. So it's a macro, yeah. CFG is a macro. So basically, it evaluates combinations of configurations. Yeah, CFG actually sounds like an acronym for configurations. Uh, Evaluates combinations of configuration flags at compile time. In addition to the CFG attribute. Okay, so we actually have this as an attribute. So in addition to the CFG attribute, this macro is provided to allow. Hmm, uh, wait, annotate with the annotate the model with CFG test. Yeah, okay, so yeah, okay. So in addition to the macro, yeah, in addition to the attribute, this attribute here, yeah, this macro is provided to allow Boolean expression evaluation of conditional flags. This frequently leads to less duplicated code. So the syntax given to this macro is the same syntax as the CFG attribute. So basically you have like CFG. This is the macro. Unlike this, with the attribute, does not remove any code and only evaluates to true or false. For example, all blocks in an if-else expression need to be valid when the macro is used for the condition, regardless of what CFG is evaluating to. So basically, you can have my directory, and then you hit if configuration. This is a boolean. This actually is a boolean. Okay. I think got a new follower. So thank you for the follow. Yeah. Um, yeah. So this would evaluate to yeah, this evaluates to boolean. So you have like if configuration and Windows, and then it would be okay. This is just the string literal, otherwise it will be Unix directory. So you can actually use the configuration macro like this as well. So you can use the macro and you can also use the attribute. Yeah. Okay. So okay. So let's see. Let's continue. So the test module uh and so this is now using the macro, right? Because from what we saw here. Yeah. Okay. But is this a macro or an attribute? I think this is an attribute. Yeah, I think it's an attribute. It's not a macro in this case. Yeah, right. I'm just gonna ask in ChatGPT. But anyway, let's continue meanwhile. And oh no, okay. And wait, this is. I think I'm gonna start by saying that this is an attribute. This is yeah. I want to see what it says. Yep, it's an attribute. This is an attribute. Yeah, it's macro when it has the bang on it. Yeah. So this is an attribute. Specifically, it's a conditional compilation attribute. It tells Rust compiler to only include the annotated code when running tests. Yes. Okay. So we got that one. Um, but in any case, we know that there is a macro anyway. So let's go on. So yeah, the attribute and this CFG test um attribute annotation on the test tells Rust to compile and run the test code only when you run cargo test, not when you run cargo build. This saves compile time when you only need when you only want to build a library and save space in the resultant compiled artifact. Because the tests are not included, yeah. You see that because integration tests go in a different directory, they don't need the attribute. So this is for unit tests. So yeah, we saw this on the unit tests. So basically, integration when we check, I think from what they're saying here, integration tests go in a different directory, so we don't need the this attribute, this CMG test attribute annotation. However, because unit tests go in the same files, yeah, as the code, you will use the CFG test attribute to specify that it shouldn't be included in the compiled result. So if we look at the code, what they're saying is this. So like it's like this. So I have like a main function. I have my main function, and then I have wait, or I think get rid of everything. So basically, I have this. I can add a main function here, right? And then I have a main function. I can also have a function that says add two, for example, which takes A, which is U32, and B, which is U32, for example, and it returns me a U32, right? So something like this, right? So I have a main function, I have another function, and then I can have my okay, it needs to return something, right? So it should return A plus B, yeah. Cannot find, oh sorry, this should be yeah. So I have this very simple functional, this is legible. Yeah. Now for the test, for unit test, I have to the unit test has to will be the way the convention is that it would be side by side with my code, right? So or whatever code it is, and it would be in its own module, right? So I have to have a module for it. I can call it tests. I can call it test. It doesn't matter. So I can say this is like test module. Yep. And then I need to specify an annotation. Otherwise, when I do a cargo build, for example, it would if I don't include that annotation, it would include this module in my build, and I don't want that to be the case. So that makes sense. That makes sense. If we inspect the code, would actually see that. But the moment when we add like the annotation, CFG test, like so, yeah, we're basically specifying that don't include anything in this module when I build my code, and then I can have my test inside of here. So this is what um yeah, so they're saying here. Okay, so that makes sense. Um, so that's the reason. I think this reason makes sense. And then they're saying that when we do integration tests, they go in a different direction. We'll see that in a bit. Let's see. Um, yeah. So recall that when we generated the new Ada project in the first section of this chapter, Cargo generated this code for us. What code is that? Yeah. Okay. So on the automatically generated tests module, that's the test module now, the attribute CFG stands for configuration. Yeah. So that and tells Rust that the following item should only be included given a certain configuration option. Yeah, which is a certain configuration option. And this particular configuration is test. Yeah. Okay. It's test. So in this case, the configuration option is test. Okay, I just even said that. Okay, which is provided by Rust for compiling and running tests. By using the CFG attribute, Cargo compiles our test code only if we actively run the test with the cargo test. Yeah. This includes any helper functions that might be within this module, in addition to the functions annotated with test. So basically, if we wanted to test something and say, I mean, of course, the test functions are regular functions, right? So it's like I don't know if we should do should here, right? Um, adds two numbers, right? I'm just gonna put it like so. Adds two numbers, and then we would then say like use. We bring that into scope, right? And then super. So basically, we're saying bring everything. Yeah, we're saying bring everything into scope. Everything we have here into scope, and then here we would then do what add to, yeah, and then say like I don't know like 5 and 6, and we would say actually assert equal, yeah, to then, and then add to would be 11. Now this doesn't yet, this is not a valid test yet because like it's not gonna, even if we try to run test, this would not run, right? So unless we specify the annotation for it, yeah. test annotation. Yep. So yeah, that's it. So this is not the only thing that will make this run for us. So this is basically a unit test. Yeah. And then so now testing private functions. So there's a debate. So this is actually is this a private function? Let's see. If we had a module here, um, my mode, just call it my mode. Oh wait, sorry, no. Let's say numbers. Yeah, yeah. And then let's say we had like this here. Yeah. Mm, so yeah, we have access to numbers, but we don't have access to this, of course, right? So we have to make this has to be like public. So we would say numbers and then add two. So now this is a private function in this case. Yeah, it's a private function. So how do we then test it? Let's see. I think that's what they want to say here. Okay, testing private functions. There's a debate within the testing community about whether or not private functions should be tested directly. Okay, and other languages make it difficult or impossible to test private functions. Regardless of which testing ideology you adhere to, Rust privacy rules do allow you to test private functions. Okay. Consider the code listing below with the private function internal. So this is so okay. So this is the public one, and then this is the private one. Yeah, if they're not in the module, what we had before was definitely going to work. Yes, but you could already access that anyway. So you can test this already. Yeah, internal adder. You can test this, which is what we are doing here. And then note that internal adder function is not marked as public. Yes, tests are just Rust code, and the test module is just another module. Exactly. As we discussed in that section, items in child modules can use the items in the ancestor modules. Yes. In this test, we bring all of the test modules parents items into scope using that. Yeah, using super and asterisk, and then the test can call internal adder. If you don't think private functions should be tested, there's nothing in Rust that will compel you to do so. I like this summation. I like this summation. So end of debate. If you don't think that, we don't compel you to do it. So it's up to you. Okay, so let's see integration tests. Integration tests. So in Rust, integration tests are entirely external to your library. They use your library in the same way as other code would, which means that they only call functions that are part of your library's public API. Of course, their purpose is to test. The purpose is to test whether many parts of your library work together correctly. Units of code that work correctly on their own would have problems when integrated. So yeah, so test coverage of the integrated code is important as well. To create integration tests, what do we need to do? You first need a test directory. Okay. So this is the thing that is a bit slightly different. So we have a test directory. Where would that be? Yeah, so that would be a library. So we have um, a library crate in this case, and then we would have a test directory. Okay. So we create a test directory at the top level of our project next to the SRC. Cargo knows to look for integration tests in this directory. We can then make as many test files as we want, and Cargo will compile each test as an individual crate. Yeah, let's create an equation test like so. And this is not a library model. This is a library crate. This is a binary crate, so we can create a separate one. Make a test directory, add and create a new file called integration test. So the directory structure would look like this. So let's create a library create um, cargo new. So we'll call it integration test. Yeah, so we just created a library, yeah, for it. Now let's go into integration test and okay, so we just created a a library, yeah, a library with cargo. And you can see we have the legal RS and it gave us generated for us a public function, right? And then a default test for this, right? So if we run test, um, if we do cargo test now, it's going to run the unit test for us, right? That's what it's doing. So it's just going to run this test. So just running one test. Now we would need to, in the root of the project, we would need to create a test directory. Um, Actually, it's called tests, plural of it. Okay, tests, and then we have to add the test file. I mean, several files. We have add several files there. So we don't need, yeah. So exactly, which makes sense that we don't need any kind of configuration annotation because we don't need to separate it from the code because it doesn't actually live in the same file as the rest of our code, right? So that's not necessary. I think that's what we've seen before. So we basically can do what do we call this now? Let's say test. Wait, I don't know. Test1.rs, right? I'm just gonna say test1.rs file. Now it will just be a function. What do we do here? Actually, we do add. Um, okay, so let's just do an add works, yeah, and then it should use. Are we going to be able to use the function there? It's public, yeah. So add exactly, it's public, so we can use it. But I didn't bring it in scope anyway because it's public. So add 5 6, yeah, assert equal, yep, and then we just add this. So you see, this is not even needed like what else. Oh no, sorry, assert equal is going to be, that's not true. And add, yeah. What am I missing here? Unexpected token input. What is that? Um, oh yeah, 11. Okay, so if I run, so this is going to be test. This will be test, but it would still run one test. Yep. So it doesn't, I mean, cargo test would not run the integration test because, of course, cargo test would is usually it's going to run those that have this configuration test. But of course, our integration test doesn't have that configuration on it. Yeah, it doesn't need it anyway. So how do we run our integration test? Let's see. So this is our test, and each file says each file in the test directory is a separate crate. Yeah, we need to bring our library into each test crate scope. Yeah, of course, we've done that already. We don't need to annotate any test with the config with the CFG annotation. Cargo treats the test directory special and compiles files in this directory only when. Wait, hold on. We don't need to annotate any of them. Cargo treats the test in this directory and compiles files in the directory only when we run cargo test. But wait, we just ran cargo test. Did it run our test? Um, we did cargo test, running one test. It works. Oh yes, it actually ran add works for us. Like that's what interesting. What about what about it works? So why are there not two tests? Or did I miss something? So, or did we run them? So we have cargo test, and then we did the compile, then finished this, and then running tests, running unit tests from SRC lib, okay, and then now running one test. So this is the test now, it works, which gave us okay, and then this is the test results for the unit test. Okay, one passed, blah blah blah. Now running tests, and then this test file, okay, test1.rs. So now it started to run this. And then it says running one test, add works. Okay, so it runs the unit test and then runs the integration test. Okay, which makes sense. And after that, it does doc test. Okay, okay, that's fine. Okay, so basically the order is unit test, integration test, and then doc tests. Okay, okay, so we don't need any annotation. So I see it here, running one test. Okay, so the three sections of output include the unit tests, which I just talked about now. Unit test, the integration test, and the doc test. Yep. Note that note that if any section fails, the following sections will not be run. For example, if a unit test fails, there won't be any output for integration test and doc test because those tests will only be run if all tests are passing. So it basically exits on first failure. Okay. The first section, uh, so basically what that means is that if we have our unit test if this were 5, yeah, and then we try to do this, unit test has failed. So running one test, it works failed. So it gives you the failures and then the log for the failures. Yeah, and that's it. Yeah, so the first failure, that's it. So you won't get anything for the integration test or the doc test. Okay. So the first section for the unit test is the same as we've been seeing. One line for each unit test, as one named internal that we added, and then one line for the summary for the unit test. The integration test section starts with the line running test slash whatever. Next, there is a line for each test function in that integration test and a summary line for the results of the integration test. So basically, Danny, do we need to pay particular attention to this? So we run cargo test. We see a running. This is like we see running unit test. So we start with unit test, and then running that test. It tells you the test that it's running, and it gives you the result. It just tells you the outcome of that, and then it then gives you the prints the result for you, which is a summary. I think that's what they call summary here. Yeah, prints you the summary, and then it goes to the uh it then tells you well the next test it's running. I think that's for the case where we didn't have unit tests, integration tests. But this is where we have integration tests. Yes. So you see, like running that unit test, and then it gives you the final result, and then here it prints you the summary. Then next it tells you what else is running. So basically, it's like running unit tests tells you the particular tells you how many tests is going to it needs to run, gives you the result, and then it uh, prints you the summary, and it goes to the next one. Tells you now it's going to be running integration test. Does the same thing, yeah, and then gives you the summary here, and next it tells you now it's doc test. It doesn't do running now. It tells you doc test. Okay, and it does basically the same thing. No test to run, and then a summary. So okay, that is I think that's what we expect. It's not nothing out of the ordinary there. I just wanted to check if there's anything interesting there. Okay, and then each integration file has its own section. So if we add more files to the test directory, there will be more integration test sections. So how about test one? Let's do a test 2.rs that will be a function test add works to what is it even? This is what it's just add, yeah. No, this is the current create, right? Wait, how do I even bring that into scope here when there is no I think it's an integration test. There you go. Yeah, exactly. Add. Yeah, I can do this. And then I can say assert equal add add 3 3 9 sorry 6 6 yeah instructed yeah and yep. Okay, so this is it. And then I can say cargo test now. Oh no, we need to fix the other test we have here, the unit test that is supposed to be 4. Okay, so it's compiled. We have um now it's going to running unit tests. There's only one unit test to run there. It gives us the results. I mean the result, yeah, prints the summary for us, and then it tells you it's running the first integration test it finds there, yeah. And it also does the same thing. Print this whatever is running for you, final result, and the summary. Then there'll be another. So it will be um sorry, now it's going to be running the second test. Gives you the print again, summary. Yeah, like that. Okay, so it's in sections. That's nice. Okay. We can still run a particular integration test by specifying the test function's name as an argument to test, to cargo test. To run all tests in a particular execution file, use the dash dash test argument of cargo test followed by the name of the file. Yeah. So followed by the name of the file. Wait. Um, wait, okay, so okay, this is the name of file because I remember that when running integration tests, we can actually so 1 second. I want to try something. Um, I want to add a test here. Yeah, let's say it fails. Is it? Yeah. Yeah, let's say it fails. And then I want to say assert equals add three, three, sorry, three, and I want to say seven. Yeah. So now I want to do cargo test. I think the way it works, from what I mean, if I remember correctly, I can run everything in the. So basically, now this is about unit test, right? So I can run. So the uh, pattern matching, the way it works here is that I can basically match all tests that have or that contain the text or the keyword, yeah, in the name. So basically, I can say, or I can also, and this also includes the module. So basically, I can say cargo test. Uh, I think it's like so, if I'm not wrong. Yep. So this tries to run everything. Exactly. So it tries to run everything inside of the model, right? So what it did was I did cargo test and then tests. That's the model now. Model name is test, yes. And then it tried to run two tests. It works and and it fails, right? That's what it tried to do. But if I do cargo test and I say um works, oh no, I think it's the argument is not correct. Okay, I think it's yeah. It needs to be, I think I remember correctly. It has to be like, I think it has to be double, right? I think that's what I see here. Is it like so? Unrecognized option. How do I pass the, wait, what was this telling me here? It was saying something about, wait, I think I need to check this in the previous section. Um, how do you specify to ignore and the rest, right? I think I forgot that already. Mm, I think it's with the, let's check. It's the cargo test. There's a cargo book, right? Cargo book. I think it would be cargo reference, I think should be. Um test cargo test. Um unit test, blah blah blah. Yeah, but I want to ignore. Yeah, I want to ignore cargo test. Uh, would it be this one maybe? This is just cargo test. But what about the seed testing guide? No, that's where we just coming from, right? Test to learn about different styles of test. Let me see. But no, no, I think that's it. Cargo test. Yeah, but where do you do the ignore? Like I think is it here? Okay, I think it's this book if I'm not wrong. Yep. As an example, this will filter for test with foo. Okay, so that's it. I think you don't have to. Yeah, I think that's it actually. So if I do works, where is it? Yeah, exactly. This is okay. So it's filtering. Yeah, functionality we're looking for is filtering. So how did I do the first one actually? Okay, well, functionality we're looking for is filtering because if you see, like when we have, excuse me, when we have cargo test, and then we specify the name. Uh, this is not just the name actually. This is like something that whatever test that has this in their name, right? Yeah, exactly. That has so it's basically contains. Excuse me. That has contains. So it contains. So that has works in the name, and this has works in the name, right? And this is why. And this is just for unit tests, I think, because let's also confirm that cargo what is that now? Yes, cargo test works. So after compiling, it says running test, running one test. It works, and the test result says one passed and one filtered out. Yeah, exactly. So it's only for unit tests because we have like four tests in total, two integration tests and two unit tests. So the cargo test is when we use the filtering now, it basically filtered out the fails, filtered out it fails. But that's true. So wait, it says running unit tests, and that's why, and this result is for unit tests, right? It's just for unit tests. Now, exactly, yeah, because cargo test runs everything. Okay, cool. So now it tries to run integration tests, and and that has that has works in it, I guess. So that's why I don't know. Add works is also there, and then it says like zero filtered out, and then um it also ran the second test. It also has works in it. That's why nothing was filtered. Interesting. Mm, okay. So to confirm the filtering, I'm gonna change this to 6 and then do cargo test um fail. Yeah. Cargo test fails, it compiles, and then it's trying to run the unit test, and it's running one test in the unit test. That one it fails is giving us okay. I mean, That's inverted, but anyway, we know that it doesn't fail anymore. It's just we're just fails here is just because it contains the name, yeah, right? It contains fails, and that's why it's running. Test. This is the test result. One is filtered out because yeah, that one has works. This is for the unit test. Now it tries to run the first integration test, and it's running zero test. The reason is because one is filtered out. So this is both for this is for the filtering is for test in general, and then it tries to run the second integration test. It runs zero test because one is also filtered out. Okay, so that's fine. So I think I've done the refresh, memory refresh now. Okay, so when let me see. We were here, I guess, right? Yeah, we were here. Okay, so I think we got it so far. Um, yeah. So it says that we can still run a particular integration test function by specifying the function's name as an argument. Yeah. So yeah, using the dash dash test argument followed by the name of this file. Okay, so this is for integration tests. So if we pass the dash dash test argument and then the name of the file, test file, then we'll run just that one. So basically we can do cargo test dash dash test and then test one. Yeah. So it only runs the integration test there. Okay. Test two as well would only run test two integration tests. Okay. But I'm wondering if there's any other difference between the unit test and integration test apart from the fact that one sits in the same file as the code and the other one sits in a separate file. Apart from that, do we have any um, kind of maybe memory, some kind of benefits in terms of compilation? Is it less resource intensive or anything? Like, um, just thinking. For example, like if you when it comes to other testing libraries or frameworks, they usually unit test would not you will have the full context of the application, for example, right? But I'm curious to see that part. Mm, yeah, we just saw this now. So this command runs only the intuition test. We saw that. So there you can also have sub-modules in intuition test. I think we should continue with this tomorrow. Yeah, it we don't want to push it. So yeah, we continue with sub-modules for intuition test tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, we just normally we keep it to like 30 minutes. So I think we went even above today, but yeah, it's okay. All right, have a good evening and see you.